What do you feel like their critique says about what they want from Bitcoin Core? Because it seems like they are largely asking for the software development process to change to accommodate them.
Yeah, I think the simplest thing to say is that their critique is just technically wrong and doesn't make sense. Like, that's a thing you could go say. They are asking for something that's dumb, and unsurprisingly, people are saying, well, we're still going to do the thing we're planning on doing. If anything, I would say this actually probably makes it easier for a change like this op return removing limit to happen again, because now people have seen that no matter what reasonable argument you give people, they're still going to yell at you at social media. So why even take that part of the world into account?
Do you not sympathize with their argument at all that they believe that Bitcoin should be for certain purposes, and they view Core's inaction as validating certain things? Like you yourself say that you're not confident in BitVM. That you prefer that the construction for L2s didn't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, given the type of thing they're doing, I'm not in a position to stop them.
But there's this imbalance between Bitcoin Core seems to be taking some sort of this medical approach, right, and sort of saying this is how things must be to keep everyone safe. We're not going to take a standpoint on anyone's actions.
I wouldn't describe it that way. I would say this is Bitcoin Core realizing that getting into the debate on a case-by-case basis of what things we're trying to go stop and what things we aren't, there's just no way you can win that. And again, going back to Libra Relay, one of the reasons why I created Libra Relay was I wanted to go show very clearly that this was not a winnable debate, because other people would do exactly what I did anyway. There's nothing special about Libra Relay. I took one patch written by Antoine Riard, if I remember correctly, to do the peering thing. And I got to point out, this peering thing I talked about, I have been running I've been distributing forked versions of Bitcoin Core for like 10 years for full RBF that did the same trick. So reusing that trick for Libra Relay was just a matter of like sitting down for a few hours and copying and pasting some code. There's nothing difficult about it.
But okay, so we have a scenario now where some users are dissatisfied with the Bitcoin Core process. Yep. That doesn't impact Bitcoin at all.
It's unavoidable in this case because what they're dissatisfied about is something that we can't fix. Because they've been spun up to go think.
But that begets the second question, which is if you had a way to fix it, would you? They also want development effort to be put into trying to fix it. I think they would argue.
Well, ironically, in this, I actually was the only guy to bother steel manning this and describing how you could maybe go and prevent arbitrary data from getting into Bitcoin. And of course, I got absolutely no response from the Bitcoin Knots people, probably because the technical solution I talked about, which I believe it was Gregory Maxwell who first proposed it 10 years ago, was just something that obviously we're not going to do because the costs are too high.
What was it?
So basically, you could imagine a Bitcoin where every single bit of data in a transaction, you were required to go prove that it quote-unquote wasn't data, right? That wasn't arbitrary data.
Okay, so prove that the address format was some sort of standard.
Yeah, well, notably, so addresses ultimately map to pub keys. And for technical reasons, some things map to hash digests. Lightning is an example of this. So imagine if all of the data that ultimately went into an address or wound up on the chain, there was a mathematical proof that was either a valid pub key or a hash digest. You could go say that, yeah, none of these things are, arbitrary data, not monkey JPEGs. The problem is, even if you do this, people can still brute force some data in there, and the total cost of doing this is not actually that high. And that's the best anyone's ever come up with. Plus, to implement this, every single Bitcoin wallet needs to go change. All of our address formats need to change. Everything needs to change. We're just not going to do it.
But why not?
Do you want every single wallet, every single QR code with Bitcoin address, every single address itself to all change just so that will make putting a monkey JPEG in Bitcoin slightly more expensive?
Some people might say yes.
Well, they are welcome to propose that consensus change. And like I said, I wrote this up.
I'm not one of those people.
Like I said, I wrote this up. And the response I got from the Bitcoin Knots people was they didn't even reply. They they just didn't bring they didn't bring it up. And I think,
But let's just say they did that. Let's just say they
well,
worked
then you would get the cost benefit analysis and seeing, well, maybe are Bitcoin exchanges willing to do this upgrade, or quote unquote upgrade? Frankly, I think the answer there is probably no. But
they seem to be on the verge of listing some of these assets. And
well, yeah, I mean that's one thing too. But even like, let's say hypothetically you could in fact do all this stuff, would I personally say no to that? If say there was no major cost to it, yeah, it'd be great. Go for it. Cool. I mean, it doesn't bother me to reduce this risk of other things, but I mean, I'm not personally tied to putting monkey JPEGs on the chain. I just know that the avenues we have available to us mean that this isn't going to change. We are much better off putting our development effort into making Bitcoin fees not matter, so that if monkey JPEGs are a thing today because of some silly, release or God knows what, it doesn't matter to you and I using Lightning.